Welcome to Talk Around Riyadh, the Wheel of Time showcast. I am your host, Joe Perry, here with my co-host, Tom Kokoza. How you doing tonight, oh God. How are you doing tonight, Tom?
I'm doing I'm doing all right, Joe. I've got a bit of a cold, so I apologize to all of our listeners, but I will power through. Luckily for us, we planned this episode out weeks ago, and I'll be doing a lot of the talking tonight. Uh, just a quick note before we begin. Earlier this week was my younger son's uh fourth birthday. Happy birthday to Dale. But my father, who recently moved to Florida and so doesn't live near me, uh, bought him for his fourth birthday a drum set, like a real drum set, like with real drums and cymbals.
he, wow.
Yeah.
He had to have known that you
Um,
would not like that.
no, I'm like I love music and I'm a fan of like teaching the kids music. I'm not a huge fan of a 4-year-old having a drum set. It's small. It's not like a full, you know, it's a bass drum, a tom, a snare, a cymbal. Uh, we had a triangle. We hooked that up to the drum set, so he's got a little bit more percussion. But like, yeah, it's not too much, but it's enough because it's real and it's loud. Uh,
Where
but
where does the drum
uh,
set reside?
well, for the first few days, it resided in the living room, in his bedroom.
Now it's in his bedroom.
Yeah.
Have you caught him playing drums when it's bedtime?
No, it just got moved up there today, so
Okay.
tonight will be the first time. It's not when he goes to bed. He still wakes up a lot in the middle of the night, and it'll be like, will he play the drums at 2 in the morning rather than like do whatever he normally does when he wakes up,
I
which
guess
is
you're going to
try
find
and
out
go back to
tonight,
sleep.
right?
That's right. This is the test.
No, I'm picturing you sleeping and all of a sudden just hearing smashing of the drums at 2 o'clock
That's
in the
it.
morning. I guess it's better that it's a weekend than a weekday, right?
Yeah, that's true. We'll see. We'll see how it is. Uh,
Yeah. So
so
yeah. So everyone might notice that Jen is not here, even though I almost said her name. Jen
mhm.
couldn't make it tonight, so we're gonna try to do our best to put on a good episode, a good show without her. Although we all know it's probably not gonna happen. So apologies in advance. But Tom and I are going to try to fill Jen's shoes and power through this episode. So,
Let's do it.
without Jen, there is no what's happening. Without Jen, there is no hen news. But without Jen, there's still Where's What Origins.
Oh,
I,
okay.
I think there might be some news today, Tom.
Yeah, no, it's a big week.
Jen might regret missing this episode. All right, welcome back to another segment of Where's What Origins. Tom, share with us any news on What Origins.
Yeah, Joe, you teased it a little bit, and I'm very, very excited to say there is some news this week about where What Origins is. And the answer to that question is not on my television yet.
All right. Thank you, Tom, for that update.
No problem.
That ends our segment of Where's What Origins. Now to get to our news segment. There really wasn't any news this week except for One Piece, and I don't know if I would call it news. And after doing a little bit more investigation, I feel like it's definitely not news, but we'll talk about it anyway. So the Wheel of Time Twitter account tweeted out another one of those short behind the scenes clips from episode, from season one. This one is focused on VFX. I had noticed just before we started recording that this episode looks like it was this video was released a month ago. on the Sony Pictures Television YouTube channel, which is odd because I didn't know about it. I don't think anybody had shared that it was available. It is an unlisted video though, so I'm wondering if they had put it out a month ago and really didn't promote it or publicize it. But there are comments from weeks and weeks ago and a month ago, so I don't know. I don't know what game you're playing, Sony, and I don't like it. If you're gonna post some sort of video like this, share it with everyone right away. Don't wait a month until you do it. So we'll talk a little bit about this. So it was focusing on the VFX from season one. They really spent most of the time. Again, it was only like 2 minutes long or whatnot. Most of it was focused on the last episode and the Trolloc battle at Tarwin's Gap. They did show some clips of some of the other things going on. There was one thing that actually stuck out to me that I didn't know ahead of time. I knew a lot of this, some of this information already ahead of time, but this one specifically, they were talking about the Faldara set and the Tarwin's Gap set. And you remember they filmed that at that quarry. We had talked about that what seems
Mm-hmm.
like decades ago. Um, and remember we had also talked about filming in the Canary Islands.
Yeah.
Like Yosha was there, and it turns out that they weren't able to actually, I guess, film scenes that they wanted to film there because of COVID. But apparently, I guess they had the film crew there, and they filmed a volcanic crater over in the Canary Islands, and then they used the footage from that to kind of layer into the quarry scene to build the Tarwin's Gap and Faldara landscape, which I thought was really cool. I didn't know that at all.
Yeah, nor I think that honestly, whatever. I think that there were parts of the series where I didn't particularly love the VFX work. I didn't think that it was. I thought that it at times it was inconsistent. Even in times in that episode, I thought it was inconsistent. But that I thought was really, really well done. Like
Hmm.
it's seamless. You can't tell um where the like where they were versus where it was superimposed on them. You may think you can, but that's not it. Like if you look at this video, you can see where the differences are, and it was really impressively done.
Yeah, definitely one of the better things that I've seen. I didn't know that that's what they did, so it was like seamless to
Yeah.
me. I didn't know it. They did show a lot of the Trolloc battle and how they made the thousands of Trollocs, and while that seemed maybe a little bit more clunky or video gamey, we know that was kind of like a last minute change, right? I imagine they had planned to use a lot of stuntmen, and then they would still have to layer in CGI, but they probably used a lot more, VFX and CGI than they had intended to for that last episode due
Mhm.
to, story changes and COVID restrictions. Um, but yeah, it was nice seeing this clip. Nice seeing some of the VFX works that they're doing. And let's hope it's a little bit better for season two, or a little bit more consistent, I should say, not better.
Yeah, consistent. Some of the VFX work is really amazing. I think in the first season, so I'm not trying to knock it. Uh, but yeah, consistency would I think would be great.
Yeah. It was kind of cool. They did show some of the channeling sequences. They showed Alana when she channels at the Loghain, with the Loghain fight with his armies, when she turns all the arrows around, which I thought was really cool. And they also showed the Waygate scene when they come out of the Waygate in Faldara. They didn't show anything about the ways though, which I was kind of a little disappointed. I was hoping to see some of that in there because I thought that was one of the more interesting sets that they were able to create. Oh, oops.
Yeah, I mean they might do another thing on it. A lot of not machine, but a lot of the ways was practical, right? It's filmed on the
Yeah, the
soundstage.
set. Yeah, it was done on the soundstage, but I know they added in, obviously some black
Vastness to it.
vastness, vastness, and they also showed at the beginning they showed might be the worst of the CGI scenes that they did was the Taran Ferry whirlpool scene
Ooh,
when they show Hightower on the ferry like getting sucked
yeah,
down. It
it
was
wasn't one of the better ones, that's
no,
for
it
sure.
wasn't one of the better ones. But I think they made up for it in some of the other shots. So Any thoughts? Anything else you wanted to bring up, Tom, about this clip?
No, I was actually kind of almost impressed with them that they leaned into. We're going to talk about VFX, and we're going to go heavy on episode 8 and forget you.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. They reminded me about the because they say it here where it's like thousands of Trollocs, like 5, 10,000, 20,000 Trollocs, and how five untrained channelers or just destroy them real easily.
we'll deal with that. Don't worry.
That's
Um,
that still bothers me.
yeah, it's not the best. Uh, I will. Pardon me, Joe. You and I talked a little bit about this earlier in the week, just off the cuff. I'm not exactly sure why we're getting these. Right? I love it because it's more content and it kind of keeps us going. And it's like little bubbles of interest. I don't mind those happening, but I'm not really sure why we're just every once in a while Sony's just like, hey, here's something that happened on the show that was on like a year ago.
Yeah. I mean they filmed all this BTS footage. We knew they were, and they were going to release it. We did talk about like maybe we had thought that they would just release like a 20-minute BTS footage or episode or whatever you want to call it. But they're releasing these little snippets, and we've gotten what? We've gotten makeup, we've gotten stunts, we've gotten special effects, right? Now this is
Mm-hmm.
VFX, and I think you mentioned we got some other ones a while ago, right?
Yeah, we got some ones back when the show was doing an Emmy push, so we got some more things on like the props and the costumes and whatnot. Those were things that were part of like the X-ray footage or whatever, like all the extras in on the show proper. But we got some longer segments on those that were a lot more, I think, like interviewing the people that they were hoping would get nominated for things. But I wouldn't mind another one on the costuming.
What do you think we would get if they release another one in a week or two? What do you think we would get next, or what would you like to see?
Set design maybe. I like
Hmm,
that.
that's a good one.
Music, Rara was saying in chat, and I think that's a cool one too.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Those are both great. Sets on music, props.
Yeah, some of the props are really cool. Some of it, I don't know. I want to see props more in this season. Honestly,
Yeah, it'd be
I feel like
great to
I'm gonna
see.
get more.
We did see something with props though, right? Remember there was that
Yeah,
footage of people working. Oh, was that the season two tease BTS footage they gave us that we saw the props?
it was the season 2 BTS
It
footage
was
that
right
we saw
because
the props. We're like, is that an axe?
yeah,
It
that's
looks like
right.
an axe handle.
Yeah,
Uh, so we'll find out.
yeah. All right, let's get into the Seanchan and wrap it up. We've been talking about them now for 4 weeks. Didn't plan on that, but
It's a
things get
big
in the way.
continent.
So it's a large continent. There's a lot of them. We're gonna wrap it up tonight with some talk about their costuming, some real world parallels, and then some of our thoughts about season two, and just also recapping their existence in season one. So, Tom, you want to start us off with some talk about the Shanshin costuming?
Sure. And I want to thank Linda of the 13th Depository. She's the best, and a lot of this came from uh, the research and essays that she's written on the books. So I appreciate that. So I want to start off first with a little Q&A from RJ from Robert Jordan, where he was asked what was your basis when creating the Shanshan race and the structure of their society. So he responded Imperial China, Japan during the shogunates, with strong dollops of the Persian Empire and the Ottoman Empire, right? So you can kind of see that, especially in the costuming. All right. So first off, some general notes about clothing and the Shanshan. Personal public nudity lowers eyes of a Shanshan, since those are scantily clad or are generally at the bottom of the social pecking order. However, in private, there's nothing embarrassing about servants or Dakaval seeing their owner naked. And or their employer naked, and the blood and the wealthy are quite comfortable being unclothed in front of their servants and or cabal of whatever gender, right?
Okay.
So I think that's interesting. I think it's an interesting thing to you'll see this as I kind of go through how I have this broken out, but the higher up on the rankings you are, the more clothing and the more ornate your clothing is. So,
That makes sense.
uh, yeah,
Right? The longer the nails or the more nails they have, right? Lacquered is similar with the higher
yeah,
rank you are.
and I guess the more layers of clothing or the size of your clothing or the complexity of your clothing is another symbol of the fact that you are of a higher station, right? Um, so one other thing that I think is interesting, in this society, as opposed to some of the other societies, uh, the Westlands, is that both clothes and hairstyles have less gender differentiation, right? It's more about rank, social rank, than it is sex, right? So
Really?
whereas you'll see big differences, let's say in Korean clothing, uh, between male and female, you don't really see that as much in Seanchan, right?
Okay.
Um, so I'm going to start at the top since their clothing is ranked by social structure. Let's talk about how the Empress, may she live forever, is dressed. Now we only see one Empress in the books, but it's later on, so we're not going to see this in the first in season two. But I think it's kind of a good way to start. So from the book itself, she wore a magnificent gown of golden cloth, cut after the highest imperial fashion. The skirt split at the front to just above the knees and was so long that it took 5 dacaval to carry the sides and train.
Wow.
She also wore an ornate headdress of gold and crimson silk, with the beautiful silken wings, shaped like those of an owl taking flight. Her arms glittered with 13 bracelets, each of a different gemstone combination. All right, that is that
Serious
is trying to
clothing.
make an impression.
Yeah, that's got to be heavy too, right? You're
Definitely.
carrying around 13 bracelets encrusted with gems. I'm sure the gems are not small.
Hmm.
A train that needs 5 people to help with it, plus an
Yeah.
ornate headdress. That's got to be pretty heavy.
Right. And I think, like we talked about this, right? And you're going to see it again and again. This is to show people that you don't have to do anything. You are so above society that like you don't even need to move by yourself. People will move you, right?
And
Uh,
Tuon's such a little thing. She's got to wear these big heavy clothes.
that's true.
Poor
So
girl.
we'll talk about that in a little bit. First, for some clarity on what cloth of gold is. It's not like we've beaten gold into a thin enough strip that you're wearing as clothing. But it is woven gold. So it's uh cloth of gold is a fabric where the weft thread is of silk or occasionally fine wool or linen, but in this case clearly silk,
The
wrapped with
the
a thin strip of gold, or in its more extravagant forms, a weft of very fine gold wire, and the warp is silk. I think that might exactly be what we're seeing here.
what
Um,
the weft?
yeah, so that's like a looming term where you're talking about your cross hatches, right? So don't ask me which is which. I did not look that up, but like your thread's going one way and your thread's going the other. Here you go. The warp is long and under tension. Thanks, Erin Marie. Um, so there you go.
The weft and warp. Okay. Something I didn't know about before.
Right.
And oh, okay. And
Yeah.
Aaron's saying the weft goes across left and right. Okay.
Right. You're holding your threads long, and these things go. These are the things that are woven in, right? I guess.
So it's
So
silk one direction and gold the other direction.
yeah. Um. So the style of this gown, as it's described, uh, is similar to formal dress of women in the Chinese and the Japanese imperial families. Right. There's a little cross section here, and that's the fashion senses of those two empires are built on the fact that they're their constant interplay over the centuries. Now, Joe, you mentioned how heavy and difficult it is to move in Fort Chuana's uh attire, but it is part of the books as they say that she can break free of her clothes with apparently a flick of the wrist. And underneath, she's dressed in black silken trousers and a tight black silk shirt. Now, what does that sound like to you?
It sounds like basketball players with their warm-up pants.
That's true, but I
That's what it
think
sounds like to me. Where
it
they the
does,
snap
right?
pants, where they just
Or like
pull
a
the pants right
Chippendales
off.
kind of a thing, I've heard.
Oh yeah, you could say like or Hulk Hogan maybe.
Yeah, right? But I was more talking about what she's dressed like underneath, where to me, I hear that and I say, she's dressed like a ninja, which plays
Yes,
into
but she's
black
wearing a
silken
tight.
trousers.
She said a, but they said a tight black top, right?
Yeah, which
Ninjas
the
wear
tops
kind
are
of.
tight.
All
Tops are
right,
tight. The bottoms are loose, right? Because you usually don't have sleeves. Your arms are free, or the sleeves are short, but
that's
you're
right.
tied to your chest.
Wait, don't ninjas wear full sleeves though?
Some do, some do.
Yeah, see, look, there's
Um,
a guy here with a. I see Headscape put a nice ninja picture in there
is it a nice ninja picture? I don't know. That's a scary, mean ninja.
on the
So anyway,
beach.
and that does fit in with her,
It's a beach ninja.
uh, with her martial arts background. I think the fact that this you see how she fights and how she's able to uh hold her own against much larger assailants.
Yeah, I
Right.
almost kind of wish that they cast Kai Alexander as Tuon somewhat because we've seen her, right? Her kind of stunt
Mhm.
reel. She's got martial arts background, and she is kind of like a small, it's got that small frame to her. She might have been a good candidate for
Well,
Tuon, but we don't know who.
I guess
Wait,
we'll all have to.
I say that already, but we have no idea who Tuon's going to be. So, I'm sure
No, we've
they'll.
got a few seasons before we
I'm
meet her.
sure that we won't disappoint. We won't be disappointed. So what are those
So,
below the blood? What are the blood wearing, Tom?
all right. So I wanted to go just a little bit more because
Oh,
before we get to the blood, there's I want to go over what the Prince of the Ravens ends up wearing because this is I'm not necessarily always the best with these things when I'm reading them, but like this was something I kind of identified when I was reading the books. Right. So again, this is a character. The Prince of the Ravens is Matt later on in the series. His ceremonial uniform is dark green and black. It consists of a fine silk robe overlaid with a stiffer dark green silk robe covered with scroll work embroidery. Bands were placed on his forearms inside the huge wide sleeves, and an ornate girdle was buckled over the robe. Lastly, a stiff pale piece of cloth was fitted onto his shoulders, so it draped down the front and the back like a tabard. Um, it was open on the sides. It flared out very wide, like shoulder plates of thick cloth. Right. So um, he is dressed like a samurai.
I'm
Right.
laughing at
Uh,
Rao's meme slash gift because this is exactly what I was picturing. Is Borat saying her vagine hang like sleeve of wizards?
hanging like a sleeve of a wizard is the one of the most descriptive phrases I've heard in any movie ever, and I will leave it at that.
Yeah,
Um,
it sounds like wizard sleeves, right? Like the robes, because he's wearing two robes
yeah,
with long
but
sleeves that hang, and then a tight girdle over the two robes. That cannot be comfortable.
it's not. I don't think it is. Right. So, it's similar to Chinese military clothing, in the Qing dynasty, but it's also very similar to what samurais would wear, or courtiers of the Edo period of Japan, right? So again, like there's a lot of influence there, and this is something that like I kind of realized as they were dressing him. I'm like, oh, they're dressing him like a samurai,
Yeah.
like where he's in just like robes, and then there's another robe, and then he's gonna put something on over him to like be like kind of armor that gives him giant shoulders and whatever else. Um,
Yeah.
so I think it's kind of cool. And then later on, like they go, okay, well, you wear that hat all the time. We're gonna tailor it to match the hat. Um, so
He's a samurai
uh
wearing a fedora.
very odd.
But I mean,
I am so
go ahead.
Matt's hat, doesn't get slightly off, is probably the costume choice I am most excited to see in this show. I really am curious as to how they're going to do it.
Ooh, that's a good one. What is the most I guess what is the costuming piece that you're most excited to see or anxious to see in the show? Matt's hat is a good one. Um, if it doesn't look like Darkwing Duck's hat, then I'm not
That's
happy.
yes, I picture Darkwing's Duck's cartoonish fedora.
Cartoonish
Um,
fedora. Um, Julian's
or
fez. Oh, well, now we're just talking about hats, but um, what about the Ashaman outfit? The Ashaman, the robe, the jacket
Asheron's outfit is
with
pretty
the
good.
pins.
And we already saw the IEL, so like that's like it's already there's some things that we've already seen, so
Yeah, the
that I was
Kaiden
very excited
sword we've
about.
seen
But
already. Yeah, I don't think I can't think
I
of
can
anything else.
also see I can also see them putting in just again like because I also felt like this vibe from it, and I think that with Tom Maryland's introduction, they really leaned into like the Western element. I can see them putting Matt into something that looks a lot like a cowboy hat, but like an old West cowboy hat.
Ah,
That's also very wide brimmed and can be
hmm.
black.
I don't. Hmm.
I don't think it should have like the
The
indentation at the top
yeah.
necessarily.
I don't know. I don't know. I guess they're gonna try a lot of different hats probably on Donald and see which one looks best on him, right? Because if it doesn't
Right.
really fit him properly, they might scrap it. Well, not the
It's
hat,
true.
not a hat totally, but I mean like they might not do a fedora or that style of a hat. They might change it up a little bit, like you said, and do more of a cowboy type
Right.
hat. But I don't
I mean,
know.
yeah, I'm just very curious as to what they're gonna do with that. As long as it's got a wide brim, that's all that matters.
Yeah,
It
I
doesn't
guess
have to
that's.
be
What if they give him
gigantic and round
like
like it
a
is in the books
like
covers.
a Steve Irwin, Australian type hat with the one side up?
Pin the one side up.
Yeah, yeah.
I would love to see Julian's Fez. I don't know if Julian's gonna be on this show. Uh
Well, anybody in Tarabon would have the fez, right? So we'll
yeah.
see people with fezes, I think.
All right. Let's move on to the blood, right? So just to be clear, the clothes of the high and the low blood, they're very similar. The difference between them is more in the hairstyles and fingernails, which we talked about in earlier episodes. The blood's women's dresses are of a solid color. White, ivory, and blue are currently popular and have hundreds of pleats. Um, this is something that you see in a few of the influences of the Seanchan culture. There's a Chinese 100 pleated skirt. Uh, Ancient Egypt, where tunics and dresses were intricately pleated. Um, Ancient Greek and Roman gowns were also highly pleated. And you even saw accordion pleated skirts in the late 19th and early 20th century dresses, right? So again, the pleats, the large number of pleats, that is a sign of like this is an intricately tailored item that I can have because I am of high station, right? Uh, Men wear very wide trousers, um, often finely pleated, like the women's dresses, held up by a sash. This is similar to the Japanese hakama. The latest fashion for men are coats is a short-fitted coat with a high collar and rows of gold buttons. This is similar to a Chinese style coat with a Mandarin collar, right? Think of uh I don't know. Think of like Chinese people in westerns again. Not that I'm going to keep anything on westerns, where they have like the red coats that are relatively short with gold buttons and the high collar. This is the kind of vibe that they're looking at. Um, People who are not dressed in the highest fashion look the same, but the coat is longer. Okay.
Okay.
B- both sexes wear long robes that may have a train. They're heavily embroidered with birds or flowers. You see Turk wear that, and you see Soroth wear that later on. Again, this is in both Japanese and Chinese styles. Um, right, and I think that a lot of they talk about motifs of like ovals and circles and things like that, and those are much apparently close to the Ming Dynasty in the style of clothing. All right. Indoor footwear is velvet slippers. And if it's cold, they'll wear a cloak with their sigil on them. Let's see, anything else of note? Lace or sheer veils are worn when hiding your eyes or face, particularly from the lowborn, and that is something that's from the Ottoman or Byzantine empires, not necessarily from the Chinese or Japanese.
Okay, and
Right?
we saw that in the teaser, right? Who we think
Yeah,
High Lady Sora. It wasn't really a veil; it was like a metal
it was like a
shield.
metal veil,
Yeah, it was a
kind
metal
of.
veil. Interesting, but yeah, a veil nonetheless.
Yeah, I wonder if that's like a combat version of that kind of thing.
Hmm.
You know,
I would think
like to
visibility
indicate that I'm.
would be poor in something like that if you were in combat. But I mean, some of the masks
But
and
maybe it's like an
helmets that.
indicator of that, like I'm here for conquering as well as ruling, or something to that effect. Um, all right, so that's the blood. That's where they're dressed. Here's something that I learned, part of me doing this research. The next topic are the Sojin. Um, so um, and I can't believe I never got this, but Sojin or Sogin. I'm not sure exactly how you pronounce Jhin. But again, thanks to the 13th Depository, um, this is keeping with the strong Japanese influence on Seanchan society that's derived from Shogun.
Okay, that makes sense.
So they usually wear long robes of one color, such as yellow or green, and slippers. Seleucia, who we'll meet later on in the series, wears a dress of red and yellow colors, which happen to be the colors of high rank in Imperial China. China. Seems that's me being from New York. Uh, right. So, and that's likely to mark her as the shogun of the empress or the empress's heir.
Okay.
Okay. Next on just regular commoners, uh, women wear high neck dresses embroidered around the neck and down the sleeves, and sometimes a headscarf. Men wear baggy breeches and a round cap. A coat is optional. This is again something of like more of the Ottoman Empire and the way that they're attired. Lower servants wear plain woolen robes, and cooks dressed like cooks here in white with an apron. So, uh,
I feel like that's like a
uh,
universal outfit. No matter where
right,
what
cooks are
country
cooks
you're
everywhere.
from or everywhere, like, cooks wear like white outfits with aprons.
Yeah, I don't know why that is. To see the sauce.
I don't know.
All right,
To show that they're clean,
I guess so.
the food is
Um,
clean and hygienic. I don't know.
all right, two more ranks in society that I want to go through. One, I want to talk about public servants or officials in the Shanshan society. Um, so as Perrin observes in Knife of Dreams, I believe, um, the Shanshan have a uniform for everything. Um, this is similar to the Ming and Qing officials in China that had Mandarin squares indicating their rank on the chest of their robes. The panels that Shanshan Imperials use are more like the Qing badges, which are smaller. Um, so, a hand of the Empress, or an honorable one, wears a dress or coat colored to the area of authority that they are, like their Star Trek officers,
A
the different
hand of
colors
the
mean that you're.
empress.
Yeah, so if you remember, when Perrin goes to the manufactory to get fork root,
Yes.
it's being run by a hand of the Empress,
Okay.
which they're
They're
a little
just
thrown off by because that person is higher ranking than would normally run one of these.
okay. An
Uh,
empire bureaucrat.
yeah, a high level bureaucrat,
Okay.
not like the hand of the king and or the queen, right? So, um, so anyway, they wear colored clothing based on the area of authority that they have, with a panel on the chest embroidered 1 to 5 hands, depending on how high they rank, higher more hands for a higher rank. A hand also wears the shogun hairstyle. Um, Clerks wear dark brown coats and breeches or dresses. Higher clerks wear quill pen, brooch, in silver or brass. Two, if they're very high clerks. Flyers have uniforms. This is the coolest one. That have a waxed linen hood with a drawstring, crystal goggles, gauntlets, and a scarf against the wind.
Okay, wait a sec.
They're
Let's break.
dressed like they're dressed like uh I don't know,
Like
like a
World War
magic
One
version
Air
of a
Force
1920s
pilots.
pilot.
Yeah,
What? Yeah.
World War
Yeah.
One pilots.
Yeah.
That's what I was
Like,
picturing of with that hood that they wear or the cap that they wear. But when you said
right.
drawstring, I was thinking of like a hoodie.
No, I think it's more like what you're saying, where it's just a tight to your face hood, but they have goggles
Yeah, the old
and
school
a
goggles.
scarf.
Yeah, like the Red Baron.
The Red Baron.
Yes.
This is gonna be great.
Oh my God! Imagine seeing people in the show riding like dragon-like creatures, dressed like World War One pilots.
Yes, I hope that they do have this stuff where like it doesn't have to all be of the same time period,
Yeah,
right? Like the entire influences, right? I
I
think
love
that's
that.
great.
I want to see that now.
All right. So I was very excited about that. Um, so uh, Saldam wear midi-length dark blue dresses, often divided for riding, red panels on the chest and the sides of the skirts that bear forked silver lightning bolts, and they wear soft boots. If it's cold, they wear long, thick, fur-lined cloaks, and the cowls of those cloaks also have a red panel work with silver lightning bolts, just in case you need to look inside their hood to find out who they are. Uh, Der Soldam have a flame embroidered on their shoulder. Damane wear dark plain gray dresses and the Adam collar. They don't wear cloaks and are sometimes barefoot. This is because they're animals.
Yes.
Favorite Damane wear ribbons in their hair. Again, because I don't know, they're like toy poodles. Uh, every time you think, no, the Seanchan, they're really not that bad. Don't, yeah, they are. They're really that bad.
Don't forget the
Okay.
Damane.
Um, so the Dakaval are the last ones that I have. Uh, Beautiful slaves wear loose fitting, transparent white robes with nothing on underneath, and white slippers indoors. Shea dancers are perhaps the most extreme example, wearing transparent face veils and little else. Less physically attractive Dakabal wear more ordinary, like servants' clothing.
Okay.
Um, they all would wear thick white woolen robes if they were going to go outside. And again, those sheer robes are more akin to ancient Egypt than they are to like the higher level people of society who are more Japanese or Chinese influenced. Um, Seekers, when they're not in disguise, wear a gray cloak with a raven in front of a tower. Then that's on the breast of that cloak.
Okay.
Okay,
Tower of
so
Ravens
that's what
makes
I
sense.
have on the costume.
So I guess bringing it to what we've seen so far of the Seanchan, from what we saw at the end of season one and what we've seen in some of the clips from season two. Um, we talked about who we think is Soroth and her veil, her metal veil. Um, the only other woman that I know we saw who was Seanchan, at least I think it's a woman because it was a quick shot. But there's that one shot of Torok we're thinking, and there's the person standing in the background wearing the skirt, the long skirt. But you're right, since the clothing is not necessarily gender specific. It's
Mm-hmm.
very unisex. So it could have been a man. I assumed it was another woman, but I don't know. But they wore like a long skirt, and I don't know. I guess I don't know. Did you have any inclinations of what rank that person was or what their role was from the costuming?
I didn't. Um, the um I'm not sure who that person is, and I wasn't able to necessarily like attach something to that.
Think it could be a
The skirt, to my
Sojin, like
recollection, Pardon, Joe?
You think it could be a Sojin?
It could be, and I think that's probably the most likely thing that it is his Sojin, because it wasn't a ornately pleated kind of a thing. I don't think it's another member of the blood or a high-ranking person, and I think that that is a possibility of him meeting somebody. Like we've talked about before, and I know there's different things. Some people think that that's like the White Cloaks charging or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I think that that might be him trying to make an impression, and he's not going to talk. That person's going to do the talking.
That could be his voice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, we've also seen in I think the behind the scenes footage, uh, Soldam and their gray dresses, right?
Well, we saw Soldam in the end of season one,
We also saw that. Yeah,
in their ball gags. We
this is
didn't
good.
see we didn't see Egwene in a ball gag. So, do you think do you think there was enough backlash of ball gags that Rafe was like, okay, let's get those things out of their mouth?
No, I think that Sarah Nakamura mentioned on Twitter that those things will still be in the series.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit about the Soldam and the Damane because we've seen them in the show already. Um, their collars are much larger and bulkier than they're described in the books. And then I
Right.
noticed too, and I don't know if I just forgot about it or just going back to the end of season one, um, they're not bracelets that the Soldam are wearing. They're like bracers. They like cover their almost entire wrists. And I didn't realize it that they literally zoomed in on them at the end, in that scene at the end of season one.
Right.
I
Yeah.
totally didn't realize like they were just like, hey, look, we're zooming in on these bracers. Um, so they've kind of gone bigger and more conspicuous for the Adam.
Yeah.
And do you think they did that just so people could see it and it was more in your face?
Yeah. I mean, they've done that before, right? They've made mention that they've changed props like the dagger to be something that like you can more easily understand watching it on TV. I
Mm-hmm.
think I mean, do I love it? No. I don't mind the bracers as opposed to the bracelet, honestly. I feel like having the collar be like this entire like shoulder neck piece
Yeah.
loses something of the I consider this an animal and I'm putting a leash on it vibe.
I 100% agree with you. It looks too decorative and nice.
Yes.
It looks like something like a noble person would wear as like a fancy piece of jewelry. I agree with you 100% on that. And I don't mind the bracer either. I understand them making that bigger. I mean, they still could have gone smaller with it, but whatever. I'm not going to harp on
Yeah.
that. But yeah, I don't, I think, I think you nailed it with it should look more like an animal's collar to kind of be that,
Yeah.
show that they're less than human or treated less than human, I should say. They're not really less than human. But that's the way the Seanchan see them, and they're treated as pets. I don't know. I think they missed that there. I think that was a change that they shouldn't have gone with. Um, you know, you did mention
And
about
also
just
there's like
making it more visual, but I was wondering, do you think maybe they made it more visual also and more noticeable because they're not doing the connecting leash?
yeah, I do. And I whatever. I know that later on you find out the leash is not needed. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's just the right. Um, but I don't know. I feel like here's the other thing that I don't like about it. I just before I forget, there's like numerous times in the series where someone snaps the collar on somebody,
Yeah.
and like you're not sneaking up and putting that on someone. Like,
Yeah, I kind of wanted to see how that thing goes on and comes off. We didn't get to see that yet. I'm sure we'll see it in this season, but yeah, it doesn't look like a piece that's easily just snapped on somebody's neck.
right? I was picturing like like a neck cuff instead of a handcuff. Where you just like flip it and it clocks in.
Yes, that's how I pictured it too. Like a handcuff, but the size big enough to fit on your neck, kind of like that. Yeah.
Yeah, but this is Not that.
So
You're
some,
caps. Just don't move for a little bit. I'm gonna put this thing on top of. Just no. Stop moving your head for just for a second.
yeah, and they also, two other things too I noticed when going back and looking at that footage. Um, the Damane have tattooed. No, I'm sorry, not the Damane. The Soldam have tattooed faces.
Yeah. I hope if that's like that is weird to me. That seemed very sea focused to me.
Well, no, isn't don't the Sharon channelers have tattooed
Oh, the Sharons,
faces?
right? Yeah.
So does this? I was wondering. I was thinking about this when I was looking at it. Does this mean that we're not going to get Sharons? Because they said let's take some of the Sharon stuff and throw it into the Seanchan. Because we're not going to do the Sharons.
Maybe. I would love. Even though I like the fact at the end that it's not the case. Like I like that. I like is a short word, but I like the fact that Taim, again, full spoilers here, guys. It becomes a new Forsaken, right?
Mm,
Um, maybe they screw everybody and they actually do Taim Mandred,
yeah,
you know? Which is what people when you were reading the books when they first came out, if you didn't read them, you know, after the series was done or whatever, uh, people thought about that for a long time, and I think that like some people think that that was the original intent, and then he changed his mind,
yeah.
Jordan, because so many people knew right away.
I think from
But
what we've seen on the Dusty Wheel did a whole episode on that, and I think from the evidence he showed from pulling the notes, I think it's pretty clear that he originally intended it to be Tame. He originally intended Tame to be Demon Dread, and then he changed his mind.
yeah,
Um, but I don't.
and we don't know the reason why. I don't think it's well, too many people got it. I made it too easy. Let me
Yeah,
change it.
maybe that could be the reason. Um,
But
Dana Lewis
maybe
pointing
they
out.
do that in the series. Maybe they keep that,
Yeah,
and then you don't need the shards
yeah.
because
Dana Lewis pointing out in chat that maybe it's not tattoos. It could be face paint, which you're 100% right. I don't know if it's tattoos or not. Um, Also, the Soldam didn't have lightning bolts on their dresses, which I was a little sad about. I don't know why they changed
yeah,
that.
I'm hoping that we get some tweaks to the costuming in season 2.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say.
So, people are asking too, like, if there's no leash between the bracelet and the collar, how would you know which Damane is yours? Who are you linked to? There's like 5 of them,
Well,
right? I mean, you could feel it, I guess,
I
through
think
the
they
link,
know, right? They know the Soldam know they're Damane. They know
right?
there's a strong connection. I think, and they're linked, so I don't know. Maybe they can kind of feel where they are as well. But I think they just know
Yeah,
they have such a strong connection with them, even though they're considered pets. They do have a strong bond and connection with them. Not not the bond water bond type. But I'm just talking about a general bond. But for us, for those viewers, you don't know. But I don't think it really does. It ever come to a point in the book? So I'm trying to think of a situation where it matters. Like there's a bunch of Soldam and Damani, and it matters who's connected to who.
no, I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think
I don't
so
think so.
either.
There's no part where people's leashes get tangled, so I guess there'd be no part where he would get confused. Um,
One other
pardon
thing
me.
too I noticed when I was going back to the end of season one is the Seanchan ships. We didn't really spend much time talking about the ships, but the ships in the show have. It looks like they have teeth on them, like big giant teeth all over them. And I don't know if that's just a design or if they're actually supposed to be teeth from like some of the Seanchan beasts.
Hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of carvings and ornamentation of the beasts, and I wonder if that's the show's nod to them, that we're not going to see a lot of Shanshan creatures on the show. We're just going to see the creature's influence.
Yeah, Dana was pointing out again tusks, like tusks. So I wonder if there's right. We said the shreddits are the elephant type creatures, so maybe
Mm-hmm.
they're shredded teeth. I don't know.
Let's see.
Something again I didn't notice until I went back and looked at it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but some of the costuming too that we've seen in the season two footage, and I guess in the season one, at the end of season one, they do have tasseled spears, right? They have the tassels on the
Yes,
spears. We talked about that, I think, a couple of weeks ago, and even on their sword scabbards, there were tassels on it. So it's cool that they kept that. And then the infamous insect like helmets.
yeah,
They kept those. They're different than what I pictured them as,
me
but they're
too.
definitely insect like helmets, which I thought was really cool. And something else too, they have these weird like back back plates that kind of look like, like the thorax of an insect, of like some sort of bug.
Yeah, they're like I love it. I think that's part of like the lacquered, uh, you know, it's partially I think it's part of the lacquered like samurai influence of the attire,
Hmm.
and part of it is just like they're alien, man. Like they're not from here.
Yeah,
I
they're
like that.
definitely very intimidating looking helmets for sure. I just thought those backplate things were kind of interesting because they seem like they would get in the way and, restrict your mobility as a soldier. And I would want to, I would be frustrated wearing something like that on my back, unless it's also like a backpack and they're storing stuff in there. But I didn't get that impression.
You're part of the ever victorious army. You don't care.
That's true. I mean, they're literally. So here's a question, right? The Seanchan have been kind of, right? The Luther and his ancestors conquered Seanchan thousands of years ago at this point. Um, they don't really. The Empire's strong, right? There's not much infighting, I imagine, going on, except for maybe in the higher ranks, like the Blood and the royal family. Like they're the ever victorious army, but who do they fight? Like these guys, are they battle tested? This army, like they never talk about that in the books. Like I would assume that most of the Seanchan army is not battle tested whatsoever.
Well, I think that they still do things where like they'll find islands around like the Empire. Like when you meet Galgan and he's talking about like one of the guys that's in his troops that's still like a Borneo wild man, right?
Well, that's true, yeah.
And he talks about how like they invaded that island when he was younger. So like I think they're still every once in a while go out and expand their empire.
Yeah. Rouse pointing out that the book mentions a battle in Seanchan between their army and a rebel province that involved 2 million combatants.
There you go. I do think a lot of the army is putting down like a high lord that gets too big for his britches.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, that's one thing I always wondered about them. I'm like, who are they fighting if the Empire is really strong and there's doesn't seem like there's much infighting going on in Seanchan. Um, one other thing too I wanted to point out is, we talked about this when that season two BTS footage came out, when we saw who we think is Torok, um, with his sword in his hands and the giant fingernails. How the hell are they gonna? How is he gonna fight with those
Very
fingernails?
carefully.
Like, can you imagine being the actor or whoever it is, the stuntman who's gonna have to do a battle scene or a fight scene with those freaking long fingernails, especially when it's the index and middle finger?
Yeah, I don't know, man. Uh Maybe that is a way that Rand will beat him,
So, a question for
you
you:
know.
odds. Let's do some odds makers here. What do you think the odds are that if Rand fights Turok in a fight scene, that they're going to be a little bit of beginning sparring, and like one of Rand's first successful attacks is going to be him cutting Turok's fingernails off.
Oh man.
Instead of, like somebody always getting that like kind of little nick that they get to show like, oh, this guy means business, so this guy's good. Rand's just going to cut his fingernails off.
I yeah, the more I don't know if you were serious or not at
No, I'm
first, and I think it was
serious.
a
I'm
joke.
100% serious.
No, I actually like the symbolism of that, of like Rand's like knocking him off of his pedestal, like
Yeah,
visually.
yeah, I think 100%. Now I'm with Headski on this one. Who's putting it in chat. 100%. They're gonna do it. Like we put these giant fingernails on them. We've got to have somebody cut them off in a fight. And
I
like you
wouldn't even
said, how
mind if he like
symbolic.
steps on them and breaks them, like uses them against them in combat.
Like he pins
He
his.
doesn't need to cut them with the sword. He can like they're long enough that he can literally step on them and like hit it with the hilt of the sword and snap them.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of different
You know what
things
I
they
mean?
could do. They can get really creative with the how do we're gonna break his fingernails. How do we do it? Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. So put money on that if that's something you could bet on in Vegas. But those fingernails are getting broken, and I think they're gonna get broken by Rand. And I'm excited to find out how they're gonna get broken.
All right.
Yeah. Um,
I like it, Joe.
Anything else from I guess from not necessarily from the footage that we've already seen, but just general thoughts on the Seanchan and their role in season 2. It looks like from the clips we've seen, there's been a lot of Seanchan in them, so it seems like we're going to get a decent amount of Seanchan. Um, you know, do you think they're going to change anything about them? And if so, like what do you think they would change, or what would you change to kind of fit the story a little bit better, from at least from where we see it's going from season 1?
Um, I don't know if you're gonna change too much. Like Rave's comments about them, the way he views their impact on the series. Um, like he thinks they're a vitally important cog in making this series distinct.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and changing it, like changing the rails of the storyline from what you expect it to be. So I don't think they're going to change too much. I think that there's obviously opportunity to edit, and I think that you may have. I think, considering I think the story will have an accelerated timeline
Mm-hmm.
in the series, even though it may take longer. Like it may be longer than 2.5 or 3 years or whatever it is the series actually takes, because these actors are going to be significantly older when the series is over. But like, I think it's going to have an accelerated timeline. They may do something to hint at this is the advanced armies like right away,
Mm-hmm.
and so like you have that sort of Damocles of the rest of the return coming behind it.
Okay, I got a couple of. I'm gonna just shoot off a few things, and you tell me whether they're gonna put them in the show or not. Um, so Sora. Spoiler alerts for everybody. Sorath as a dark friend.
Yes.
Okay. Bail Doman getting captured by the Seanchan.
Not getting captured. I don't think he's getting. I think that's off screen.
Okay. So I was gonna throw out there, right? Because isn't Aguinan the one who captures him? So we're gonna get Aguinan
Yes.
in this season.
Mm, you know what? Yeah, I changed my mind. Let's put her in.
Oh, Beth is pointing out Kara G for Aguinan. That'd be awesome. But she's kind of playing the same role she played, a similar role she played too in the Expanse. But yes, I'd like that very much. Um, Padden Fane going to Torok.
Yes,
Okay.
I think he's there in one of the scenes that we
Yeah,
saw.
I think that's him too. That one scene we talked about in the earlier BTS footage that came out the first release. Let's see what else we get in the books 2 and 3. Seanchan wise, I guess Rand fighting Torok and killing him.
Yep.
Uh, what else? I think that's all I got. Do you think we might see Tuon? Do you think Tuon appears in season 2?
No, but I think she's talked about.
Tuon? Do you think Tuon's gonna get talked about?
I think that they're going to talk about the Daughter of the Nine Moons is coming.
Okay.
Like they won't hear, like the rest of the characters won't hear, but like Soroth might say something as she escapes.
Okay. All right. I can't think of anything else specifically in my head. I don't know if there's anything you could think of. Um, any kind of the big points
She
that we get the Seanchan from. So, yeah.
all right, I'm good, man.
All right. Anything else, or do you want to wrap it up here?
I think we could wrap it up.
All right, let's wrap it up here. I want to remind everyone to follow us on social media. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Join us over in Discord to continue the conversation there. Rate and review us wherever you listen to podcasts, and check out our merchandise and Patreon pages to support us that way. Links to all the aforementioned information is included in the show notes to this episode. I'm going to say with fairly good confidence that next week we're going to be starting our review of The Origins of the Wheel of Time. Unless for some stupid reason Amazon does not send us the books when they're supposed to. Unfortunately for us, I've seen a lot of people already have the book. Apparently Barnes and Nobles has it already out on the shelves, which I'm a little resentful of. I was tempted to drive to Barnes and Nobles to see if they have it, but I already ordered it from Amazon, so I'm gonna wait till Tuesday, and hopefully it comes on Tuesday, in which we should start covering it next week, and we'll be covering it for the next few weeks. Depending on, I don't know how long the book is, how many chapters it is. We're going to bring on some guests to join us. We haven't solidified all of them yet, so I won't share that, and you'll have to be surprised because I don't want to spoil you, right? Because I don't like spoiling things. Tom, anything you want to say? Any last words before we close out?
No. Thanks everyone for listening.
No, that's my line, Tom. You can't say that.
Oh, sorry.
Just because,
Damn
you can't steal my lines. Just because Jen's not here, you can't do that.
It's
Before we
always throwing
go,
me off.
we're
We
going
missed
to
you,
give you
Jen.
2 hobo signs.
I stepped
There
on.
you go. I'll give you a hobo sign. There we go.
Do you have more hobo signs?
Yeah.
Okay. Is this a
Okay.
new segment we're going to add to the show before we go? More hobo signs?
Yes. Here's one. All right. If you see a plus sign, and in the upper right-hand corner of like the plus sign, like the upper right quadrant, there's a circle with 3 dots. Okay, you with me?
This sounds like
That
some
means-
sort of this literally sounds like a software user interface thing. The 3 dots and a plus sign. Are we expanding the grouping
So-
and also the 3 dots for the settings or options?
If you can get it on this screen, here's what it looks like.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It says "Doctor here won't charge you." Okay, so you get some free medical work.
I'm a little bit concerned about how quickly you pulled up those hobo signs.
I had it ready.
You did?
Yeah,
All right.
I anticipated you might ask me about them.
All right, everyone. There's our hobo sign for the week. I guess, Tom, we're going to have to close out with hobo signs every week, at least until we run out of hobo signs. So be prepared next week for a new hobo sign, and be on the lookout for any hobos in your town. Thanks, everyone, for listening, and you'll hear us next time.